The next part of our basic math training, and we're looking in the same workbook, Basic Math, and this time we are looking at the third worksheet called TRUNC, INT, ODD, EVEN. And these are additional mathematics functions that again will have an impact on decimal values, and depending on what you're trying to achieve might assist you. So over here we have some values. These values have been increased by 1.2%, and then we've got two functions called TRUNC and INT. And technically these functions actually produce the same result except in certain circumstances. So what they will do is they will round the number and basically remove the last two decimals. So it will now if it will round it to the nearest dollar or rand or whatever you are working with and remove the decimals. So technically it actually lowers the value of the number. So TRUNC of this number will result in 365. So you'll see it basically makes the decimals a 0 by making the number value slightly lower. INT does exactly the same thing. It rounds it off by basically taking away your decimal values, hence actually making the value of the number a bit lower. But this is where you see the true difference between these two formulas, is when you start working with negative values. So if I use my TRUNC function over here, it's going to change my value from minus 15.58 to minus 15, which does seem accurate. However, when I use my INT function, it changes to minus 16, and over here minus 47 and minus 125. Now technically the lower value of minus 15.58 is not in fact minus 15, but minus 16, which is actually smaller when you're working on the negative scale. So it all depends what your objective is, and then you can choose which function to use. The next thing we're going to look at is our odd and even functions. If you have an array of numbers and you use the odd function, it will give you the next odd number from 0. So we choose odd, we select the number, and we'll get the very next odd number from 0. And you can do the same thing with the even function. It'll give you the very next even number from 0. If you work on this on the negative scale, it will work exactly the same way. And we can do the same with the even numbers, keeping in mind that negative, it actually goes further down to make the number smaller. And that is some nice mathematical functions, TRUNC, INT, ODD, EVEN, not very widely used, but there may be a time and a point where it'll be useful depending on what your objective is.